On this edition of Southern Newsweek, Dunedin's mayoral candidates were grilled by the city's business community. The domestic cricket season is set to begin at the end of this month. Will Dunedin's Oval be ready? And Amuro retailers are banding together for Shoptober. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. Dunedin's mayoral hopefuls were put through their paces recently. All 14 candidates attended the Dunedin Mayoral Forum, organised by the Otago Chamber of Commerce and the Otago Daily Times.
It was the turn of Dunedin's business community to hear from the people wanting to be the city's next mayor. Despite some candidates turning on each other earlier this week, all 14 candidates were well behaved during the Mayoral Forum organised by the Otago Chamber of Commerce and Otago Daily Times.
Look, I tell you, I mean, they were very well behaved. You know, every single one of them stuck to the rules, which is always a good sign, because it can get, you know, when you've got those time limits. I think they all answered the questions well. We had 3 different sections. One was just to introduce themselves and their role in business. Second ones were pre-prepared questions, and then the third section came from the crowd. And we had no idea what they were going to be, so it was great to see them be able to be put on the spot and try to get those answers come out from there.
McGowan says the forum was a success, and those attending now had a better understanding of the people wanting their votes.
We've had a great forum. It's been a mayoral forum focused on business and trying to understand what the councillors and what they believe, or the potential councillors' views are around business, around a lot of questions around infrastructure, but also about what is the future of Dunedin, what does that look like, and how we're going to make sure that we become a sustainable city.
He says Dunedin businesses have a number of concerns about the direction of the city and look to the mayor and city council for some certainty.
The business community, of course, is going to be concerned about what the future productivity is, and that's going to be around a number of the plans around the rebuild to the hospital, around the main street, what's that going to look like for them, rising costs that they're already facing from central government, so how can it be eased around local government. So there's a number of issues, and of course housing and affordability of those. But also, when we look at it, it's what is the skilled labour force going to look like into the future, and how do we tap into that youth?
McGowan wouldn't divulge who he thought was the best candidate, but says it was good to hear a range of views.
I can't say that here on camera, as you can imagine, because we're a non-political organisation. What you heard today was a number of answers which had a variety to them, and there's more than one solution to all of these problems, so we need to make sure that we listen to all of those candidates and what they have to say.
Voting for this year's local body elections closes at noon October the 12th. In Dunedin, the South today.
There's just 1 month left to make sure the University of Otago Oval cricket pitch is in prime condition for the start of the first-class season. Turf manager Jaden Tohul is embracing the challenge of preparing a pitch for Otago's season opener on October the 30th.
After checking under the covers of the University of Otago Oval cricket block, turf manager Jaden Tohul is confident his pitch will be ready in time for next month's Plunket Shield match against Auckland.
The team put in a pretty big shift over the winter trying to keep it as dry as possible and healthy, so it came through pretty well, and obviously winter was reasonably dry for us, so it makes a difference in terms of keeping a bit more grass on the block. So it had a renovation early September, and we're pretty happy with where it's at, yeah.
In the history of first-class cricket in Dunedin, no groundskeeper has ever had to prepare a pitch so early in the year. Tohul's been in a job for 2 years now, and he says he's acquired a lot of knowledge from last year's wet spring.
You know, even if it was to happen again, we've learnt a lot from last season, so we're in a better place, and yeah, you're always learning. You know, every day you shut, you're making it a better place than the last, hopefully, so you're always looking to improve.
During the summer, the venue's looked after by a busy staff of 6 workers.
I guess from the outside it probably just looks like we're mowing and rolling a bit of mud, so.
Tohul says he's looking forward to seeing his beloved pitch host 2 international matches this summer.
It's awesome. Yeah, we've got the white ferns down here for the first time, so looking forward to that. And then, yeah, about a month later, black caps roll into town, so it's a good way to kind of end the summer.
Otago start their Plunket Shield season with a 4-day match against Auckland on Wednesday, October 30th. In Dunedin, the South today.
As part of a movement to bring more vibrancy and vitality to Amuro CBD, local businesses have joined forces to launch a campaign to re-engage shoppers. Named Shoptober, the month-long event aims to get consumers shopping in Amuro first before going online or taking a trip to nearby cities.
Awamuru's shopping area is set to benefit from Shoptober, with 46 local shops working together to welcome customers back into town.
This is to promote shopping local for the whole of October, trying to get not only locals but visitors to visit our stores and perhaps re-engage with some of the businesses that they may not have been in for a while.
Shoptober is set to be launched next Thursday with a family-orientated day of events.
We're going to have lots of activities, events and happenings around Amuro town all day until 8 o'clock that night.
Berry says Awamuru shopkeepers are feeling the effects of a worldwide trend towards online trade and shoppers travelling to nearby cities for their purchases.
We're certainly not alone in this. All small towns are feeling the pinch with retail and online shopping and all the different challenges that retailers face now.
It's hoped Awamuru's shopkeepers will benefit from working together.
And it's been mentioned from a couple of retailers and a couple of shopkeepers that they felt quite isolated previous to this, and now that we're all working together, it's just really lovely, and hopefully we continue that enthusiasm forward into next year as well.
Shoptober launches next Thursday, with the 46 shops between Torridge and Wansbeck streets holding in-store specials, activities, as well as late-night shopping. In Awamuru, the South Today.
Tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets across the nation recently as part of the global climate strike. Marches took place in Dunedin, Invercargill, Alexandra, Queenstown and Wanaka, coinciding with more than 40 marches and other events across the country.
About 9,000 took to the streets in Dunedin to demand urgent action on climate change. School pupils were joined by students and staff from the University of Otago, as well as thousands of others for the third climate strike of the year.
I'm here today for my nephew and my future family that's going to be coming in soon. So I kind of just want to be here for all of the future generations and just, for little kids. Because people don't realise what's happening, or they do, and they don't do anything about it. So I guess this is kind of the only other option. Yes, we had our Enviro group kind of organise the whole thing. So they organised buses to come down, and they've kind of been really supportive. And so is the school. They've actually let us. They made permission slips and everything.
They also sent out emails to, informing us about the strike and how we can get involved.
Just being really encouraging for us and
allowing us to be out of class on the last term as well to come and support School Strike for Climate.
We as students need to have a voice, and the only way to do this is to be a collective and to do it all together, because we live in a society, I feel, where the voices of young people are sometimes denounced, and by all standing up together I feel it can be more powerful. I feel like it'll tell the government that we are worried about it and that we do want something to change, and that we're not just going to stand by and wait for something to happen.
Yeah, it's exceeded all expectations. We've got 2,000 to 3,000 people here. It's fantastic, it's amazing.
Similar protests were held around the country where similar chants were heard. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern News Week, an Otago University academic's book about free speech has been turned down by publishers, and a rundown hall near Balclutha is marked for demolition unless it's thrown a lifeline. So see you after the break. Welcome back. University of Otago Emeritus Professor Jim Flynn is no stranger to controversy, having been kicked out of 2 universities for speaking his mind. He's just been told by a publisher they're not going to publish his latest book about freedom of speech, saying it crosses the line into hate speech.
In journalism and academia, they say publish or be damned. Well, imagine if your publisher refuses to release your book. It's the position University of Otago Emeritus Professor Jim Flynn is in after an English publisher has refused to release his book about free speech. Emerald Press scheduled it for publication, but has now decided not to proceed.
I've got nothing against Emerald. I'm sure their lawyers said there will be some risk, but that just shows how bad those laws are. They should include incitement. They should ban incitement.
The Emeritus Professor says Otago University has never tried to curtail his freedom of speech, despite the fact he's used to getting into trouble for speaking out, especially when he was working in America.
I was considered too friendly to blacks in the South, and I was considered a social democrat and therefore dangerous in the North, if you can imagine such a thing. So there are universities today who are just as intolerant as those universities were then.
He says the freedom of speech argument can't be talked about if people aren't allowed to discuss free speech openly.
Free speech will always hold the danger that some people will think the irrational side is won. If you don't allow for that danger, there's no free speech at all.
In the book, he discusses the opinions of Arthur Jensen, who he says he disagrees with, but he believes even quoting Jensen for the purpose of demolishing his arguments is one of the reasons the book was pulled.
You know, when I state in my book that Arthur Jensen thinks blacks are genetically less gifted for intelligence, I state that, and then I show all the arguments I have against it. And I say, through arguing with Jensen, I'm more sophisticated.
The manuscript in question is called In Defence of Free Speech, the university as censor. However, following the publisher's decision, he's considering changing the title to A Banned Book, Free Speech and Universities. Jim Flynn says several publishers from around the globe, but not Great Britain, have approached him about publishing it. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A rundown community hall in West Otago looks set for demolition unless an 11th hour alternative can be found. A public meeting is due to be held in the hall to decide if the 65-year-old facility is to be demolished, with a smaller shelter to be built in its place.
Dunrobin Hall, about 10 kilometres west of Rays Junction, suffering from long-standing disuse and disrepair, and now likely to be demolished. Local farmer Peter Adams says it'll be sad to see the hall go, but its current use does not justify the $30,000 it'll cost just to repair the roof.
The roofs, I think, is about 30 on the tone. Between that, and of course, it's the one at the front is all different angles and stuff, and it's a haven for cluster flies, which is, I don't know how you fix that one. No one knows how to fix that one.
The hall sits on several acres of land, and the 6 people who attended a meeting earlier about the domain and the hall's future are thinking a 2-bay shed with some other facilities would suit the needs of the community.
We'd build something else as a shelter sort of thing. We still, still have toilet facilities, running water, because people still use the grounds, or even we've had going back now. New Year's down here and stuff like that, so you still want to leave something.
Adams says the hall would be lucky to be used more than once every 6 months, which is a reflection on how much rural communities have changed.
It's going to be sad to see it go, because it's a lot of good memories and stuff, but I'm not the old church across the road. It hasn't been a church ever since we've been here. We've been here since 2000 odd, so, and there's probably a lot of halls around the community doing the same thing. Struggling, not getting used.
If the hall is to be demolished, it's likely the honour boards and photographs will go to another hall in nearby Heriot, about 10 minutes drive away. Locals are invited to attend a final vote on the hall's future at 7:30 next Tuesday evening. In Dunrobin, the South Today.
A mother's tears were the motivation for a smartphone app developed in Dunedin which helps families preserve digital photos. Alex Don is a man behind startup company Happy Moose, who have developed a clever app which sifts through your photos on your phone, choosing the best images.
Selecting and collecting your treasured memories.
So the app will scan through your photos, throw away all the photos of receipts, where you park your cars, all the invoices, screenshots, lecture notes, things that does not have any emotional value. The app will throw those out
Thanks to a $100,000 grant from the Callaghan Innovation Fund, the growing team at Happy Moose in Dunedin's wharf area are helping smartphone photographers select and preserve their precious memories. Founder Alex Dong says he was moved to create the app after talking with parents.
And I managed to ask one lady, like, why are you crying? Because this is like, quite a strong motivation thing. And she said, when she grew up, her mom and dad always made an album for one of each her siblings. So when she had the baby, she always thought that she will do the same for her children. But now 2 children, it's like all school age, she has these like 37,000 photos.
What began as a one-man operation in Dong's study has now grown to employing a handful of staff.
It's bloody tricky, because this is a very heated area. There are a lot of people doing photos. So on one hand, we want to grow the business sustainable, everybody enjoy the job. The other one is we are competing internationally. So that's a balanced thing. Yeah, it's not easy.
As the app's creator, Dong owns the intellectual property and plans to franchise the app around New Zealand and possibly the world. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, protesters disrupt a Petroleum Conference in Queenstown and a world champion is welcomed back to her old high school in Palmerston. So stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Protesters in Queenstown set their eyes on the New Zealand Petroleum Conference recently. Around 35 protesters stationed themselves outside the front of the Millennium Hotel, where the conference was being held, loudly voicing their displeasure.
Protesters making themselves heard and seen outside Queenstown's Millennium Hotel, the location for a 2-day petroleum conference.
We're planning to colourfully and peacefully and non-violently make our voices heard and represent the people who could not make it today.
The conference's program includes an address from the Minister of Education and Resources, Megan Woods, as well as a lunch in partnership with billion-dollar oil field service company Halliburton.
Most ordinary New Zealand citizens want a safe future. They want a safe climate. It is not okay to let these guys keep destroying the future for all of us.
Chief Executive of New Zealand's Petroleum Exploration and Production Association, Cameron Madgwick, says they have no objection to peaceful and safe protest, and he's been pleased with the behaviour this time.
In previous years we've had protest groups who have chained closed fire doors. So, we have to take this stuff pretty seriously. We understand that people have different views in relation to our sector and its role, but that can be no excuse for compromising the potential safety of people or for damaging property.
Madgwick says the protesters have so far not affected their 2-day conference.
We've started on time, we've continued on time. We've been having the types of discussions and presentations that that we had planned for, particularly around the pathway to lower emissions, the role of our sector in doing that, what natural gas actually delivers.
Penn Warden remains unimpressed with the topics being discussed at the conference.
They're talking about digging up methane hydrates, ice gas. They're talking about more gas, using gas as a source for hydrogen. It is still a fossil fuel. It is still damaging our climate.
The conference includes a proposal to create a dedicated fund to invest public proceeds from new oil and gas developments. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Newly crowned women's motocross world champion Courtney Duncan shared a simple message for family, friends and fans at her homecoming in Palmerston recently. After arriving in Otago last month, Duncan was given a civic reception with a march through the township and an event at her former school.
Cheering family members, school pupils and members of the wider community marched through the grounds of East Otago High School, waving signs and balloons to celebrate Courtney Duncan's world champion status.
Pretty excited. It's pretty cool to be back here at my old school. I mean, I spent all my schooling career here, so it's cool to come back and see the kids and show a little bit of support back to them.
Duncan won the title at the AFON circuit in Turkey earlier this month and was welcomed to her former high school with a spirited haka. She had a simple message for the people in her hometown: never give up on your dreams.
Pretty much just to continue to chase your dreams. I mean, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a world champion, and I went through some tough times to get there, and a lot of doubtful moments as well. You know, am I ever going to make it? And but I just kept going and held on to a little bit of faith, and I mean, we're here today and we can finally say I'm a world champion. So yeah, kids, just continue to chase your dreams and never give up on what you want.
Waitaki District Mayor Gary Kircher says it's Palmerston's first civic parade since 1954, when the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh visited. Receiving the honour means a lot to Duncan, who says the support of community and especially her family has kept her going.
Yeah, my family's, I mean, I couldn't ask for a more supportive family. That streams from, my parents to my brother and sister, to my cousins, aunties and uncles, grandparents. I mean, everyone's so supportive, and it's cool. It's cool to have people like that behind you. Win or lose, those guys are always there for me.
East Otago High School Principal Marcus Cooper was delighted to welcome her back to the school that she left at the end of Year 11. At 23 years old and at the top of the motocross world, she says her interest in the sport began when she was very young.
Yeah, it was prior than that. I got into motocross pretty much as soon as I started primary school. I think I was like 6 when I started riding, so spent a lot of the time riding and growing up with the kids that come through the school, and it's cool to give back.
About 250 people attended the parade, which featured the North Otago Highland Pipe Band. The last time a New Zealander was Women's Motocross World Champion was in 2006 and 2007. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Great weather made for a blooming, successful Alexandra Blossom Festival recently. A crowd of more than 8,000 soaked up the festive atmosphere at the 63rd annual event, as temperatures reached about 20 degrees.
Flamboyantly colourful floats and more queens than you can shake a tiara at, as more than 8,000 people soak up the fun and colour at the 63rd annual Alexandra Blossom Festival.
The gods have been kind, the crowd is just huge and getting bigger. Mum, Dad, the kids and the grandparents, everybody's having fun. That's what Blossom Festival is all about.
The festival's event manager Martin McPherson says it's a community-led staple event, one which he's been part of for nearly 2 decades.
I came here in '92 and worked through to 2001, and so this is number 19. Next year will be my 20th.
Many bands entertained the crowds throughout the day, and McPherson says having country music legends the Waratahs headlining the event was a major drawcard during a busy weekend.
Spirits wander every day. We've got the Waratahs here as our feature act, which is a real coup. We've got a nice bit of steampunk happening, but no, again, we try, it works. So it's got the elements of the parade, the entertainment in the park, the food, the wine, mum, dad and the kids and the grandparents.
About 100 trucks and vehicles led the parade down Centennial Ave, followed by a procession of colourful handcrafted floats. One of the regular highlights of the event is the crowning of the Festival Queen, with 25-year-old Sophie Rogers crossing the stage to accept the title.
And the winner of the Alexandra Blossom Festival, the Princess for 2019, Sophie Rogers. Humble Pie Group, eat humble pies.
Martin McPherson says the event pumps more than $1 million into the local economy. In Alexandra, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern News Week. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great evening and week. Ka kite anō.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.